Hey everyone, it's MrMostDaysOff.
And I'm Richie the WizKid.
And if you happen to be listening at the exact right moment, you can count down the new year with Best Darn Diddly live right now.
Speaking of which, the ball's about to drop as we speak. Are you ready?
10, 9, 8, 8, 8.
Oh, will this horrible year never end?
You know, 2017's actually been pretty good for our podcast.
That's true. We've had a lot of amazing guests and fantastic episodes to review throughout the entire year.
It's too bad it hasn't gone so well for the rest of society.
I know, right? Next thing you know, we're gonna have to pay a bear tax.
Or an internet tax.
Ugh. Or a homer tax.
That's a homeowner's tax, dude.
Don't!
You know, 2017 was pretty good for us, and we don't plan on stopping in 2018 either. We have a lot of great things ahead of us, and we hope that you come along for the ride as we continue to review all of these great Simpsons classics.
And we'll be damned if we're gonna lose a year on our watch.
Hey, we haven't lost one yet.
Oh, speaking of which, the ball continued to drop. We need to catch up.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year! Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as MrMostDaysOff, and today we have got another great episode. I would say it's an excellent episode. It's got a great guest star, great voice acting, great plot, great jokes. It's got a lot of great stuff. So let's go ahead and get to our great co-host, your co-host with the most, Richie the WizKid. How you doing today, Rich?
I'm feeling a little inappropriate after watching that episode, I think. And to be fair, this is not a Mr. Burns episode, because you kind of lead the listeners to thinking that when you say excellent. But this is something much, much sexier than Mr. Burns.
I was just throwing back to the fact that I used to say every episode was excellent, and you would always give me shit for it, because frankly, they all have been so far.
If you say so, Frank. But anyways, we'll get into it as usual. That's why you're all here. I'll go ahead and throw it back to you. The man, the myth, the I wish Mindy Simmons. It is Miles.
Indeed.
Isn't she the perfect woman?
I was about to say, dude, and is she not like the hottest Simpsons character model to date? Like, she's giving Maude a run for her money.
To date, yes. I think there's some in the future that will be better, but
can't wait.
For now, we'll go with this. Animated porn, but not real porn.
So this is our 70th podcast, and we have got a good one. It is The Last Temptation of Homer. It originally aired on No, it didn't. It originally aired on December 9th, 1993, and Richie, I think we might have a season 5 first. Maybe I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, but is this the first chalkboard gag we got this season?
Let's just flip through the old prompter here and see.
If there were any, it would have been in the first two.
There is Cape Fear and Homer's Barbershop Quartet both had one, and that's it.
The first two. Those were the leftovers from season 4. So of the season 5 originals, this is the first episode that didn't go long enough that they had to cut that sequence out of the credits. We got a chalkboard gag, and it was a good one. Repeating on the chalkboard and getting bigger and bigger, all work and no play makes Bart a dull boy.
Makes Homer something.
Don't mind if I do!
No.
We also get a really cool couch gag. It's got a small cameo by David Letterman. And I learned in the commentary that they intentionally did this because David Letterman just moved to the NBC network, which I think may clear some light or shed some light on the episode we were discussing a little while back where we said when Conan, it was Homer Goes to College, Conan's last episode, when we were talking a little bit about him taking over that spot. And I think that might be what had actually caused Letterman to move to NBC, parent company with Fox, of course, and they decided to roll out the welcome mat for him in the form of a couch gag, which was kind of fun. The Simpsons couch was right next to Letterman's desk.
In real life.
Exactly. The episode itself opens up with Bart and Milhouse in the Springfield Elementary School parking lot, and Bart is actually painting new lines in the parking lot. This is actually a really great sequence, because you see The beauty of it is that each parking space is a mere 1 foot narrower, indistinguishable to the naked eye, but therein lies the game.
I fear to watch, yet I cannot turn away.
The teachers start to arrive, and Skinner and Mrs. Krabappel actually end up parking next to each other, and they're so close to one another that the doors of the car can't actually open.
Blasted woman, you're too close.
I'm in the lines. If you've got a problem, go tell your mama.
Oh, don't worry. She'll hear about this.
And we pan out and we see that everyone is trapped in their cars, and some people are even starting to panic quite a bit. Once we get into Mrs. Krabappel's classroom, she's addressing the morning's prank. Class, I know there's no way to prove who actually did this, and in our American democracy, everyone is innocent until proven guilty.
God bless America.
But my class is not a democracy. Ha! For the rest of the year, Bart Simpson will be called on first for every question. And we actually see Mrs. K write the word photosynthesis on the board, and when she turns around to the class, she acts like she doesn't know who she's going to call on to pronounce it. But of course, she sticks to her word for now and calls on Bart Simpson. We see from Bart's point of view, though, that the chalkboard is actually very blurry. He's struggling to read it, and while this is going on, Martin is losing his damn mind. He's had his arm raised from the very second Mrs. Krabappel asks the question, and he's about to jump out of his seat. He's just so excited to answer.
Oh, pick me, teacher. I'm ever so smart. It's photosynthesis, damn your feeble brain.
But Bart declares that it's not fair. I mean, he couldn't even see the board. And that's when Mrs. Krabappel actually has a small revelation, or at least she considers the possibility that perhaps all of this bad behavior and all of the bad grades have all been caused by a minor vision disorder.
You mean it ain't me noggin, it's me peepers? Oh well, that's just loverly.
That's where Bart kind of gets that Cockney thing going again. He does that just ever so often, where he gets that Cockney British accent and says something really goofy like this, but it's always hilarious. We next see Homer at work at the nuclear power plant, where he's about to pull one of his classic pranks.
Check this out, guys.
And Homer uses a robotic arm to pinch the butt of a man who is handling dangerous chemicals in a hazmat suit. He's actually in like this protective room doing something obviously very dangerous. And the
Homer, safety inspector is the one that pinches his butt.
The safety inspector grabs his ass with a robot arm, causing him to drop whatever it was, and gas quickly starts to spread through the room. Homer, Lenny, Carl, and a fourth man who I honestly did not recognize, but the script identified as Charlie.
Yeah, he's been around a few times. I think he's been around in the back. He's, for everyone out there to paint a good picture, he's the one that he's got kind of, not short hair, he's got bangs, whatever, but he's got glasses. You see him in a few episodes of The Simpsons.
I've seen him as like a background character, but I didn't know he actually had a name.
It might be the first time they say his actual name, but I mean, he's been on the show before.
Fair enough. But either way, they're behind the glass. They're watching all of this go down, but it's fine because even though this guy is clearly done for, Carl points out, you don't have to worry. The safety glass will protect us.
Uh-oh.
But that's when we see the gas actually starts to seep through the seals of the window, and all the alarms in the power plant start to go off. All four of the men start to run around, and Lenny actually yells out, "Run! We'll hide at my house!"
It's a great plan.
From the gas. Yeah. As they run towards the emergency exit door, though, things get even better, because the first person actually smacks into the door, or what we think is the door, and the other three all kind of accordion in on them, in an almost Three Stooges style of manner. And they discover that, hey, this safety exit is painted on.
There's no way out. We're doomed. We're doomed.
We see the four men cower as the green gas starts to devour them. And suddenly we cut to a scene, I guess it must be after the fact here, because Charlie is now in Mr. Burns' office. Well, sir, I won't bore you with the details of our miraculous escape, but we desperately need a real emergency exit.
Why, that's a fabulous idea. Anything else you'd like? How about real lead in the radiation shields? Urinal cakes, maybe?
Mr. Burns starts handing stuff to Smithers to throw at Charlie, and it's like, I think it's like a notepad. It smacks Charlie in the face. Then we see Mr. Burns do what he always does in this situation, pushes that little red button under his desk. Only this time, instead of a panel opening in the floor, a tube actually comes down and sucks Charlie up, taking him all the way to, I'm guessing, somewhere in India, because he's actually spit out onto a table surrounded by men who start chanting for him to dance, dance, dance.
Smithers, where does that tube go?
I don't know, sir. It was here when we moved in. Smithers and Burns have to discuss what they're going to do now.
Until Charlie gets back from India.
For now, they're going to need a new emission supervisor, a dangerous emission supervisor.
Yes, we'll find someone cheap. It's been a very lean year for us.
And then Mr. Burns and Smithers kind of have this long pause where they gaze into each other's eyes for just a moment. Money fight! So we see Mr. Burns is starting to train a new employee.
Excellent, Zutroy. Work hard and each day you'll get a shiny penny.
And suddenly from the ceiling, a bunch of figures dressed in black actually rappel down on ropes. Agent Wesson, Department of Labor. This man is an illegal alien.
That's preposterous. Zutroy here is as American as apple pie.
Taka Kerba... How in the fuck do I say that?
Takni krabda, Mr. Burns.
This plant violates every labor law in the book. We found a missing Brazilian soccer team working in your reactor core.
That plane crashed on my property.
Oh, it's such a bad joke.
Yeah.
Look, Mr. Burns, we want to see some changes. For starters, you can reverse your sexist employment policies and hire at least one woman.
All right, I'll bring in a woman. But I still stand by my hiring policies.
Quack, quack.
Get back to work, Stuart.
See, and you said this wasn't a Burns episode.
He did have a lot of great moments early on.
He really did.
I love when we see Stuart later in that episode.
Yeah, in the monitors, totally. Back with Bart, we see that Marge is going to take him to the doctor to figure out what's going on with his eyes. And fortunately, Dr. Hibbert's actually started an HMO, so they're going to have a place to go for all their medical needs. But unfortunately, instead of starting a health maintenance organization, Hibbert's HMO is a little bit different. His actually stands for Hibbert Money Making Organization, which, to be fair, is a lot more honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And you notice he's in every scene, like, with every other doctor.
Right. Just because, I'm sure there's a fee for his appearance.
I hope I always picture him as, like, putting his finger up in the air, like, signaling to the other doctor, make it cost more.
Doctor?
Wallowitz.
Speaking of Hibbert's finger, he's actually got his finger firmly planted on a red button under his desk. He must have taken a page from Mr. Burns' playbook, because we even see that for just a moment before Marge tells him that she has insurance, he starts to push that button and another mysterious tube comes down to start to surround Marge. But as soon as she says, I've got insurance, it immediately retracts.
Money in the bank. Margie, what you drank? You got money in the bank.
So, Hibbert recommends Bart to go to the optometrist, and we actually learn that Bart has a lazy eye. He's going to have to wear glasses for 2 weeks, and it just so happens that the optometrist notices that Bart has a really dry scalp, so he's going to need to go see the dermatologist. Bart's going to have to put on an ointment on his scalp every half hour.
That's ridiculous.
He's also going to have to avoid open flames and pregnant women. And we didn't actually see the reference here, but next up he's in another doctor's office because he's being told that these special shoes are going to help with those fallen arches.
Is the stuff in his hair like going to make somebody have an abortion? Like, I really want to know why he can't be around pregnant women with that. Or does it make them like, does it give off like a testosterone fume or something and make women flock to him? I might need some of that hair ointment.
Well, Bart's day at the doctor, or at the HMO really, isn't over yet because he's at yet another doctor's office and the doctor notices his throat is just a little bit dry. So she puts a spray on his throat.
Thanks, nice lady. My voice is crazy with the spraying already. Aye! I feel so much better, Mr. Medical Science type person.
And for whatever reason, this throat spray turns Bart into Jerry Lewis, who is essentially Professor Frink. I assume that was Hank Azaria, but I don't know that for certain.
There's no way to tell except for, cast credits and things like that.
Yeah, I didn't think about it till just now, honestly. I just assumed it was him.
Probably a good assumption.
So we go back to the power plant where we see Homer, Lenny, and Carl are actually discussing all the things that are going to suck about having to work with a woman.
If they hire a woman, we won't be able to spit on the floor.
And we won't be able to take our pants off when it gets hot.
And we won't be able to pee in the drinking fountain.
That's Homer, and Lenny and Carl just look disgusted at this point.
I mean, if we wanted to. Not that I ever did.
Ooh. So Smithers comes up to introduce their new co-worker, Mindy Simmons. And I love as he introduces her, he's like, I think she has an engineering degree or something. As soon as Homer lays eyes on Mindy, though, he immediately has a very strong reaction. He kind of has a fantasy breakout, daydream style. Instantly, we see everything around Mindy goes away, and her beautiful red hair, starts to grow and flow and blow in this unnatural wind, and it surrounds her body very strategically so that they can put this on television. We see that she's standing in a seashell, and Lenny and Carl, who are in the form of cherub, are holding a cloth that also just so happens to cover a certain area to keep this clean enough. And they're actually giving Homer advice, or talking to Homer as cherubs in his fantasy.
What's the matter, Homer?
Yeah, haven't you ever seen a beautiful woman riding a clam before? Homer excuses himself immediately. He runs into the hallway. He has to get away from this woman and compose himself. What the hell was that? I probably shouldn't have eaten that packet of powdered gravy I found in the parking lot.
Smarter than a dog, but not by much.
But can you just imagine? Yeah, that's absolutely true. My dog would totally eat a packet of gravy, and then she'd just be really sad at her tongue and mouth were so dry and cakey, even after she drank all the water. Ugh. She's eaten stuff that's been super terrible before that mixes poorly with water and expands, like instant mashed potatoes, and we've been so scared. I mean, it's just she's a mess. I love my dog, but oh my god. But for now, Homer's having both work-related, employee-related, and now probably, I assume, he's going to have bathroom-related issues after that.
At least he won't be peeing in the fountain anymore.
I guess so, yeah. Bart's having a rough time at school with his new look, because when he walks into Mrs. Krabappel's classroom, he immediately gets made fun of by Sherry and Terry.
Nice glasses, Four Eyes.
Nelson also tries to get on this a little bit, but he struggles. Yeah, nice shoes. 2 feet? And even Martin is picking on Bart.
Your appearance is comical to me.
And all the kids start laughing around Bart, and things are going very, very poorly. He looks at his only remaining friend in this situation, Milhouse, and I guess for the first time, he sees his new reflection, and I love this because he literally gasps and declares, I'm a nerd! Milhouse also sees his reaction now in Bart's glasses, and we get an even greater response.
So am I!
It's like Milhouse is just now realizing, after years of this, that that's a possibility. This I actually wrote down as a contender for my favorite joke, though I will say that I already know it's not going to hold up, because I know what my favorite joke is in this one, and it's not coming up for a little while yet, but we'll definitely get there. Back at the power plant, we see that Homer has managed to make it through the rest of his day, without, I guess, thinking about or running into Mindy. But as he's walking, yeah, that's probably true too. Great bit here, because when he's walking to his car, he actually declares, "Another day, another box of stolen pins." And when we see him toss the box of pins into his car in his backseat, he's already just got like a pile of boxes of pins back there to the point where some of the pins are actually broken and the ink is leaking onto his seats.
Have a good night, Homer.
We see as the POV turns up with Homer's vision that as he looks up from his car, he sees that Mindy had actually parked right next to him. And she drives a motorcycle, which, let's be real, that definitely gives her some hot points.
Absolutely.
It's pretty dope. But Homer's actually really excited. He's able to say bye to his coworker, and he didn't hallucinate. Everything seems to be alright. That thing earlier must have just been a fluke. And then we see Homer driving full speed down the road, backwards and into traffic, like he's literally driving the car in reverse and into traffic. So both things wrong there. Cars are veering off the road left and right. He's causing accidents all the way until he actually drives off-road through a fence and straight into a trout hatchery. Immediately we see him sitting in waist-deep water, and some of the fish, the trouts I presume, actually pop up and start singing. Homer loves Mindy, Homer loves Mindy, Homer loves Mindy. While the fish are singing, Cherub Lenny and Cherub Carl return, and they actually start talking to Homer. Homer, you're hallucinating again.
Not a good sign.
And we fade to commercial with an ominous bit of music playing because Homer does in fact realize that this woman is very much still on his mind. And that brings us to the end of Act 1, and on that note, let's go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
And now it's time for our favorite part of the show. What's that say? Ads and sponsorship. Ugh, this is gonna be a real nightmare. Okay, what do you got for me? Patreon.com? What the hell is that? And they just give us money for it? Oh, if only we had that around in the 70s. Make sure you ask your mommies and daddies to send money to bestdarndiddly at patreon.com so they can drive a dump truck full of money up to our houses. Uh-oh, I said the loud part quiet and the quiet part loud.
Hi, I'm Drew.
I'm Nate.
And I'm Tanner, and we are the hosts of Headline Heroes.
Every week we take a bizarre, out-there article,
Germans build underground pipeline for beer,
and attempt to create a superhero or villain.
The obvious one is that they have a giant robot that runs off of beer.
Along the way, we discuss powers, design a costume, and of course, struggle with a name.
Graham Sam? No.
Graham Sam, no!
And inevitably, we get off subject and talk about the really important stuff.
I did go to Bill Engvall's website, and I just want to tell you a couple of things I'm seeing here.
Please do, I wish you would. But we always arrive with the super creation we are proud of. Join Headline Heroes every Tuesday as we try to make reality a little more super.
When we come back from the commercial break, we see Lenny, Carl, and Homer once again in the break room, and this time, however, the only thing that Homer seems to be able to talk about is Mindy. No matter what Lenny or Carl say, Homer has a response just about Mindy and how great she is and how awesome she is and how wonderful she is. And Lenny and Carl are actually really worried about their friend at this point.
I call bullshit on that. I think it's because they want Mindy and they're concerned because there's competition.
I don't think they're concerned at all about him having a crush on Mindy. No, they're just concerned because Homer doesn't usually talk during the break at all. He usually just grabs a box of donuts and heads to the bathroom.
To the water fountain.
Cool. And as Homer's crush gets worse, things at school are also getting worse for Bart because he tries to bust out his old skateboard and prove that he's not a dork. He's still the same person he's always been, but it seems that maybe his new shoes are causing him to be a little bit off balance because he instantly crashes hard into the lockers and he causes an avalanche of books to come down on top of him. One of them actually lands on his head, and when he removes it from his face, the bullies are waiting for him, and they're really upset that...
He's trying to read that advanced calculus in elementary school.
What is it? They literally... Hey, he's learning on his own. Let's get him!
Let's get him!
So, things are going badly for Bart and Homer. Homer goes to where everyone knows his name, Moe's, of course, and decides he's going to share his woes, or kind of. You'll see. He's going to talk about his problems in an abstract way, or do the old "it was a friend of mine" thing. And we actually see him say, "Moe, I need your advice."
Yeah?
See, I got this friend named Joey Joe Junior Shabadoo.
That's the worst name I ever heard.
You then see a man at the end of the bar who, from the director's commentary, it was noted that he was drawn to resemble the very wonderful and awesome Jim Brooks. So really fun little Easter egg in there. But either way, he actually gets up sobbing and runs out of the bar, and we hear Barney cry out,
"Hey, Joey Jojo!" I really like this
That's
bit a
a
lot.
really good joke. It's so dumb, but it's so funny.
Joey Jojo Jr.
Shabadoo.
Shabadoo. Hey, don't they do that in South Park?
Do they?
Doesn't Mintberry Crunch say Shabadoo or something?
Mintberry Crunch.
Shabadoo!
So Homer feels after that his charade is basically broken anyway, so he just tells him, I'm attracted to another I'm attracted to another woman. What am I going to do?
Your infatuation is based on a physical attraction. Talk to the woman, and you'll realize you have nothing in common.
Barney, that's so insightful. How did you come up with that?
It was on one of these bar napkins.
And he actually pulls out the bar napkin, and for whatever reason, that was not just like handwritten on there, but actually printed on the napkin.
Dude, the cookies and the napkins in this episode are just on point with Homer.
They are speaking, they're on his level for certain. So, at Barney's suggestion, surprisingly, Homer goes looking for Mindy so he can actually have a conversation with her and realize clearly they're not going to have anything in common. She's really hot and it's got, Homer excited, but as soon as he gets to talking to her, he's going to realize it can't be the one for him. So Homer goes up to Mindy, who's in the break room eating donuts, and he actually is kind of awkward with it a little bit. So let's have a conversation. I think we'll find that we have very little in common.
Can't talk. Eating.
Hey, my favorite! Raspberry swirl with a double glaze.
Double glaze. Ah.
Dough! Okay, so we have one thing in common. But you know what I hate? Drinking beer and watching television.
Oh, not me. That's my idea of heaven.
Dough! Me too.
Really? I can see I'm gonna love working with you. Well, gotta go. I want to sneak in a quick nap before lunch.
Foul temptress. I bet she thinks Ziggy's gotten too preachy too.
Damn you, Ziggy.
So now is when we need to talk about the awesome voice acting done by Michelle Pfeiffer in this episode. Michelle Pfeiffer absolutely kills it in this role. She is really, really talented as a voice actor, even though this was actually her very first, maybe only, I didn't check that. I know for certain it was her first time voicing a cartoon character. And actually, there was some a little bit of fun stuff coming from the director's commentary on this one, specifically from David Merkin, who has actually had some experience working with her directly and directing her a bit on what was needed from the role. And once again, like many times before, nothing but very kind things to say about how awesome she was to work with and how committed she was. I'll tell a fun story about that here in just a second. But one thing I definitely want to note is that Michelle Pfeiffer was actually really nervous going into this, and David Merkin actually had to kind of coach her through a little bit because she had never done a cartoon and she knew this was a beloved program and she didn't want to, piss anybody off, basically. She didn't want to screw it up. So she was actually really, really worried about being able to deliver a performance for an animated character. But David Merkin actually worked a lot with her directly and told her how great she was going to be and really reassured her. And as you know, it came out really, really awesome. One thing, though, is Mindy and Michelle definitely do not have the same diet because Michelle Pfeiffer essentially only ate vegetables the entire time she was doing the work there on The Simpsons. The whole time with them, all she ever ate was vegetables. And to the point where when she was eating during some of the scenes, she actually would eat while she was voicing the character so that it would sound correct. It would sound like she was talking while she was eating, but she was just eating completely different things than what Mindy was eating in the show. They just could not get that line quite right where she was actually doing like the famous Homer drooling sound whenever she says double glaze. So this is how committed Michelle Pfeiffer was to getting this correct. She actually chewed up a bunch of broccoli and then put water in her mouth and gargled the water and the broccoli while saying the line. And that was how they got the desired effect that they wanted for that scene, which I think that is awesome to think about. Michelle fucking Pfeiffer coming on a show like The Simpsons
broccoli for The
and
Simpsons.
Gargled broccoli. Like, that's the type of stories that just bring me so much joy when I discover I'm working on this podcast.
What I like about it is I honestly was going to ask if you knew if maybe she worked with Dan at all, because her Homerisms in this scene in particular are really spot on. Like, it's, especially for her first job on a cartoon show, she nailed it, dude. Like, everything sounded just the way it should. And honestly, like, it's hard. I gotta bring it up. She's Homer's perfect match, isn't she? Like, if he didn't get some other chick knocked up at a really young age, this is his woman, isn't it?
Well, we're going to see what would have happened if he married Mindy later, and it doesn't seem half bad, if I do say so myself.
It doesn't seem at all bad.
No, I will comment on what you said about working with Dan. I don't know the ins and outs of exactly how they work. I don't know if he coached her in any way. I do know, though, they did record in the same booth together, so there could have been some
that almost never happens,
that.
too.
And that is somewhat rare. I don't think it doesn't always. They actually, the Simpsons staff actually record together a decent amount of times for certain takes, but
I meant like in cartoons
case,
overall, like most cartoons, like especially movies, they do solo recordings.
Especially when you're dealing with those big stars that you can only get in on a limited time. They just come in, sit in a booth, knock out all their lines.
Like David Spade.
You know what I actually think? I always think of, when I think voice acting now, it's silly, I know, but I actually think of Vin Diesel as Groot in Guardians of the Galaxy, because it just absolutely cracks me up that apparently he actually he demanded that he get to wear stilts while he was recording the voice of Groot in the first movie. Apparently that helped him get into character for all the I am Groots he had to get out.
Man, if you read interviews about Vin Diesel and the character of Groot, it makes me really like Vin Diesel a lot more. Just how dedicated he was, even though there's only one thing he has to say, and the number of different takes he took and everything that he was going through with Paul Walker's death at the time. It's actually quite beautiful if you actually read everything that was going through his head when he agreed to do the role. And I really like the guy. The guy seems like an outstanding person.
I'll have to check out that interview.
Groot helped him cope with Paul Walker's death.
Interesting. I'll definitely check out that interview. That sounds pretty neat. Back to The Simpsons for now. Homer is just now at this point trying to avoid Mindy. He tried Barney's plan, didn't work. He's just trying to stay away from her. And it seems like he managed to do so because he's catching the elevator at the end of the day. And he actually says, "Whew, made it the whole day without seeing her again." But the elevator doors open and lo and behold, there's Mindy. Hello.
I guess we'll be going down together. Getting off together.
That's okay. I'll just push the button for the stimulator. Elevator.
Can I just say, Miles, I think we have great chemistry as these two characters. I really feel the tension between us.
Are you telling me I should leave my wife for you? Is that what I'm hearing?
No comments.
For now, Homer just closes his eyes and he starts chanting to himself, "Think unsexy thoughts, think unsexy thoughts." And we get a very gross image of Patty and Selma shaving their legs together. And then, possibly even worse, he actually says, "Oh, that's unsexy." But then, possibly even worse, we get Barney in a bikini, which of course, until Barney actually transforms into Mindy in Homer's mind.
Do, 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 do.
But actually, what's interesting is when Homer looks over at Mindy, she too is whispering to herself.
Think unsexy thoughts. Think unsexy thoughts.
So finally, Homer just can't take it anymore, and he just, elevator ride says, well, this is my stop. He hits the emergency stop button, steps off the elevator, and somehow this leads out the side of the smokestack, and he just slides all the way down to the parking lot.
See you tomorrow.
I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit because it's a funny moment from the commentary, but Matt Groening, the joke we're going to get to here shortly, where there's a Homer is written on his hand and there's a person with a really oversized hand. Matt Groening really disliked that joke because it was just too unreal and natural for his liking. But then David Merkin pointed out that really, if you think about it, the moment that Homer steps out of the elevator and he's on the side of that smokestack is equally as stupid.
Yeah.
And that made Matt Groening feel just a little bit better about the hand joke.
Man, the more and more we talk about David Merkin, the more I start liking him as a showrunner and just as the way he thinks. I like the ideas he has and the slightly darker tone sometimes, and just kind of like how Jim Brooks would always stand up for the show early on. It seems like David Merkin backs himself up a lot too, which I really like, people that have that confidence to just say, let us do our thing.
I won't lie, I'll go ahead and I rarely do this, but I am going to go ahead and declare that I have been actively trying to get David Merkin's attention on Twitter. In fact, I'll just go ahead and declare it right now. If you're listening to this and you want to help us out with this campaign, please go on Twitter and @Dave Merkin. Let him know that you want to hear him come on the Best Darn Diddly Review Show and share his thoughts with us about his great work. Because it's one thing to hear him on his commentary on the DVDs, which is a lot of fun, and I really enjoy his insight. I really enjoy his dark and dry sense of humor. There's a lot. I completely agree with you what you said. He's a really interesting guy, and I think I really appreciate and respect his attitude towards the show and where he's taking it, because everything he's doing is very much with respect to what Alan Mike got started in the early, and Jim Brooks and everyone who got that show going in the earlier seasons. But he really is putting just a nice little touch to everything, and I would love to hear him come on our show and just share some thoughts about any of the episodes that we'll be discussing, of course. So hit him up on Twitter. @Dave Merkin needs to show up on the Best Darn Diddly Review Show, and we can make it happen. Let's get the people behind it.
I bet he's got some fun stories, too.
He has to have some fun stories. I mean, it'd be fascinating to talk to. For now, let's go ahead and get back to one of the great episodes that he helped create. And when we see Homer getting home, he's actually just really excited to see his family. He just wants to get his mind off of Mindy, not think about how hot or beautiful or awesome or delightful or any of the great qualities she has is, but he just wants to see his beautiful wife, Marge, and go on with his evening. Unfortunately, when we see him open the door, Marge greets him, and she's not necessarily looking at her best. Not somewhere where you're going to not necessarily going to help get his mind off of Mindy right now, because unfortunately she's fallen down with a cold. She's come under the weather. It's not her fault. She's such a great woman, and it's really unfortunate timing, but just Homer needs to be reminded of his love or even possibly his lust for her, and that's not happening in this moment.
Isn't it true, too, that one of those moments where you need something specific, or you want something specifically, and almost the exact opposite effect is what comes from it? That happens in life all the time, where like you dream about this moment, he's dreaming he's going to come home, see his wife, and everything's going to go back the way it was, and then literally like the worst thing possible happens.
I call that the ha-ha fuck you effect.
But life does that a lot, doesn't it? And I think it's just how our minds focus on certain situations, but it's not actually happening, but our mind blows it up to those proportions. But
it's all in our psychology. I agree completely, definitely. And then to your point on that, in this situation, things start to stack up on one another, like it seems that often happens in real life, because he now has to face the realization that his son is a total dweeb, who he goes to pat his head and he gets like goo in his hands. And then Lisa announced that she made dinner. She burnt the fish sticks, but it's okay because they're still frozen on the inside, so it kind of balances out.
Even Homer wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I actually wrote down that as funny as that joke was, that's a very out of character moment for Lisa.
She's
like,
8
I
years
can almost
old.
see that. Yeah, but she's so fucking smart, dude. Like, I mean, come on. Even as
she's
she
book smart, not oven smart.
But if she's book smart, she can read the directions on the oven, and those fish stick bags come with pretty clear instructions. I'm just saying, I think this joke would have almost been funnier if it were Bart, but that doesn't really make as much sense just because he would never offer to cook dinner.
Well, and they had to have Lisa do something.
Of course, yeah. But anyway, the frozen on the inside, burnt on the outside, equaling each other out thing was hilarious. Just to have a little cherry on top of his entire family debacle that's going on, as he discovers his delicious fish dinner he'll be having, Grandpa Simpson runs through the middle of the living room, chasing Santa's little helper and screaming out, "That raccoon stole my lamb chop!" So, I mentioned Lisa is acting out of character a bit, or I felt so. I think Homer acts just a little bit out of character in this next scene, and for good reason. It's definitely supported with the events of the episode, but regardless, it's a little bit off-putting when you see Homer and Marge watching television, and Homer is actually the one that suggests they turn the television off so they can have a little bit of quality time together. Not that type of quality time. Marge is still not feeling good. That's the thing. Is she's still in her bath gown? She's still stuffed up, as she described herself here. But either way, she does think it's a really sweet gesture, and she's excited to talk to Homer. In fact, she had a somewhat exciting day. I hope before she was feeling under the weather, she went to the mall, because it's kind of a bitch move if she went to the mall after she's feeling sick. But either way, at the mall, they had a new store that you could get your own picture printed on a t-shirt, and since hers got smeared, she got $2 off.
And that's where, like, the whole right side of the shirt, her eye and everything is just smeared.
It's so hideous looking, and actually to the point that the image somewhat disturbs Homer, and it frustrates me because I'm just like, Marge, don't pay for that. Like, it doesn't matter if you get $2 off.
That's the joke, though.
I know, of course, but it's still just so funny to see, and Marge's face is so comical here. It actually almost looks, to some extent, like the end of the arcade levels where you're blowing up the giant balloon head of yourself.
Yeah,
only on like half of her face.
I like that. That painted a very nice picture in my head. Good job, Miles.
Boom.
Goes the balloon.
Immediately after that, Homer's, like I said, he's a little bit disgusted, so he's just like, hey, we haven't watched TV in a while.
In like 2 seconds.
It was like, maybe 20 seconds real time. Even the TV, when they turn it back on, seems to be working against Homer, which, I mean, that's his best friend. That's just wrong. Because as soon as they turn on the television, Kent Brockman is announcing they're doing a new special called Hail to the Cheat. And it was about how essentially cheating on their wives may have helped many political careers, such as the Kennedys and the Clintons. They changed
the Bushes. One of the first shots at the Bushes, maybe.
Maybe. They've taken a few already, but yeah, it's still, that warfare is definitely still going on in 93. They immediately flip the channel, and now there's a special on a certain type of fly that actually has thousands of sex partners. And then finally, a very...
And they don't feel guilt. That's the...
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
With no guilt whatsoever.
No guilt whatsoever. Ah! And he turns the channel again, and there's a very sexualized commercial for the NRA with I actually thought it was a Nike commercial at first, because it said, just do it. But then you see the letters NRA pop up, and that makes no sense either. Even more so when they follow just do it with get a ringworm test, because this is the National Ringworm Association, also known as the other NRA.
I remember always laughing at this joke, even as a kid. My friends and I would be like, did you see how it kept, like, the camera kept zooming in on their butts and their boobs, and then it said, just do it? That's so funny.
Yeah, I bet you were just laughing at that commercial, you little pervert.
Absolutely. It's a cartoon. I didn't think that you could masturbate yet, or masturbate to cartoons at the time.
If only you had had an early jump on that, you could have got an edge on the porn industry.
I know, right?
That's still disturbing. We've talked about that in other episodes, but just seriously, Simpsons porn just bothers me. Like, it is... I'm always one that says,
I'm not gonna watch it, so.
To each their own if you enjoy it, but my goodness, that is just a really strange fucking fetish. But hey,
well, that's because the show's been on for so long too.
I don't know.
So you feel like you're part of the family, and it's just like, if I saw those. Oh.
So it's incest cartoon porn at this point.
Yeah.
Well, Homer's had enough. He actually runs out of the house and heads to a payphone where he immediately pulls out the yellow pages and calls a marriage hotline. And Ned Flanders answers, which is probably the worst thing Homer wants to hear at the other end of this phone, especially since Ned clearly recognizes it's Homer Simpson. and says, "Why don't we get Marge in on this call?"
Which I think it's probably 101 in like this kind of job where they say like if you recognize the person, don't acknowledge that you know them.
That would be rule number 1 for sure. Yeah. And don't surprise.
Bad Cub Scout master. Bad phone rep.
Getting some issues in the Flanders household, huh?
In the flutily doodly.
Well, Homer actually screams again, one of many screams in this episode. He starts to run out of the phone booth, but he forgets to open the door, so he kind of knocks the phone booth over and at the same time knocks himself out. And we get yet another daydream sequence, or at least you have to assume it is. They don't necessarily verify, but Homer's visited by his guardian angel, who's taken a form of someone that he will know. He tells Homer that he's Sir Isaac Newton.
Sir Isaac who?
So the angel is a little bit frustrated, but he's like, fine. And he turns into Colonel Klink from Hogan's Heroes instead.
Much more appropriate. Colonel Klink, did you ever get my letters?
I'm not actually Colonel Klink. I'm just assuming his form.
Do you know Hogan had tunnels all over your camp?
Homer! So real quick, let's talk about Colonel Klink. Colonel Klink was actually played by the actor Werner Klemperer, who lived from 1920 to the year 2000. Werner Klemperer was actually of Jewish descent, but in a little bit of irony, he actually had 2 famous roles in which he played a Nazi. In one, he was actually playing a Nazi who was being tried for his crimes in the movie Judgment at Nuremberg, which was made in 1961. When he was offered the role of Colonel Klink in Hogan's Heroes, before he agreed to do it, again, he was actually a Jewish person playing a Nazi, and one of the requirements of him taking the role is absolutely none, 0 of his plans should ever be successful. He would only ever be portrayed as a bumbling failure, and that was one of the conditions before he played the role. And of course, if you've ever seen Hogan's Heroes, that's exactly what happened in every single episode. He was essentially a Nazi clown at the time, is really how you could best describe him.
I mean, you could totally understand that, though, because if any of your plans actually succeeded, you're literally hurting your own people, and I can see where that is a huge conflict of interest, where that would like really hurt your soul to do something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was pretty cool, though, that they did, in fact, get Werner Klemperer to come to The Simpsons to relive that role one more time, or to take on that role one more time. And this was actually his last appearance on television.
Oh.
But you know what? That's pretty cool that, it's a beloved character, and it was years before he actually passed.
The show's been on longer than Hogan's Heroes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's a kind of a, I think anybody who got the chance to be on The Simpsons, be it their first, last, or somewhere in between, I still think that's a special mark on your resume. And I think that he will always be remembered, not for The Simpsons per se, but because his iconic role in Hogan's Heroes.
If only 2 of us could have an iconic role on some kind of television show similar to that, where there's a family of yellow people that talk and have crazy outings every week.
Again, you can make as much fun of us as you want to. The more the merrier. So Colonel Klink actually I'm going to call him Colonel Klink, but he's really the guardian angel. But Colonel Klink tells Homer that he's going to show him what his life would have been like if he had married Mindy instead of Marge. And he actually takes Homer's hands and they start flying, and they fly up to a mansion, a huge mansion with tennis courts, swimming pools, the works. And you actually see Homer and Mindy playing tennis together. They're very clearly happily married and very, very wealthy. So far, Homer's kind of wondering, where's the bad? Maybe Marge turned out worse. So they fly to go see where Marge is now residing in a world where Homer married Mindy. And they actually fly to the White House, where we hear somebody addressing Madam President.
Which, to be fair, you don't know which person they're talking to. It could be Lisa.
You have to assume that it is Marge. They try to make that the point, but I do like the fact that you could argue that now we've had references to both Marge and Lisa Simpson being the first female president.
I just like that you hear out of the White House office,
There was really no point to this fantasy, or not one that was going to help Homer at all, and literally...
Yeah, he said that she was going to be upset and in a bad situation, or that Homer would be, and then literally he's there, and it's like, well, that might not be bad, but this will be bad. So, did he not know what he was going to show Homer?
I guess not. Yeah, it seemed like a real bad plan. I don't know, for a guardian angel. But just like that, the dream's over, and Clink actually announces that, well, dream's over, and he disappears, and Homer starts to fall to the ground. Only when he hits, he actually wakes up back in the phone booth that he originally passed out in. It would once again seem that everything was just a dream, and I really love here because Lionel Hutz walks up, and he actually has a great line.
Hey, you! Get out of my office!
Getting back to our B plot, we see that Bart is at school pretty much just getting pounded by everyone. Even like this weird country kid who's like, you're goofy looking. Bart runs away. He manages to escape the mob, and when he rounds a corner, he actually gets pulled into a locker. Inside the locker, you see two sets of eyes, and then when a match lights, you actually see that it's Martin who saved Bart. He pulls him down through a secret tunnel, and they end up in a refuge of sorts that is clearly a place of safety for the nerds of the school. Because you can see nerds, there's a couple playing chess, some are just studying, doing their homework. But Bart is fascinated. He wants to know, what is this place?
The Refuge of the Damned.
As gloomy as that may sound, it's actually a pretty friendly place. It's just all the nerds supporting each other, and Martin and all the nerds seem very excited to welcome Bart into their clutches. Excelsior! So back at the Simpsons' home, we see Homer in classic style singing to himself.
Oh, Mindy, you came and you gave without flaking, but I sent you Bengay. Oh, Wendy, you kissed me and stopped me from something, and Uh-oh.
Dad, why are you singing?
Tell a lie, tell a lie. Because I have a small role in a Broadway musical. It's not much, but it's a start. Bravo.
Are you hiding something from me?
Like what?
Judging from your song, you're infatuated with a woman named Mindy, or a man named Andy?
Lisa, look out behind you!
Dad, I'm not going to fall for that.
No, Lisa, I swear to you, I'm 100% completely serious. You've got to turn around right now before it's too late!
Huh?
Sucker!
I love how far Homer's willing to take that hit. Talk
like
about
that solves everything.
the boy that cried wolf thing. Talk about like what's going to happen when there's really a danger.
But the thing is, you can tell that Lisa's fallen for it before because she's like, no, I'm not going to do it, Dad. But then he has to go even further, like you said, and be like, no, I'm 100% serious this one time.
We're getting to that scene I was talking about with the hands earlier, because Homer's just decided that he's just going to have to tell Mindy, like, look, we just can't be around each other. I need to avoid
booty
you.
tail.
Yeah, boom, we're done. Like, well, yeah, separation is key here. So Homer is actually written on his hand, and he's walking down the corridor reading, Mindy, because of our uncontrollable attraction, I think we should avoid each other from now on. He passes Lenny, who's done the same thing.
Max, what I did because of alcohol and anger.
And then we see a man with an exceptionally large hand come by. I am tired of these jokes about my giant hand. The first such of these incidents occurred in 1956 when... and like the writing just kept going on forever and ever and ever. He could have basically written War and Peace on that thing.
Hi, Homer.
Mindy! Oh no, I'm sweating like Roger Ebert. Murphy? You are an elf? Controllably, I think. We nam yo-ho renge kyo.
Which, my guidebook, The Simpsons, A Complete Guide to Our Favorite Family, does mention that what Homer actually reads off his palm, I think, is an old Buddhist chant.
Dave Merkin commented on that in the commentary. Just that last line was actually a Buddhist chant that I probably butchered. But regardless, it was thrown in for absolutely no reason. Just thought it'd be funny.
Do you know what the actual chant means?
Do not know what the chant means.
It's a vow. It's like an expression of determination, and it's supposed to bring out your Buddhist nature, kind of. It's like a pledge to never yield to difficulties. So you have to basically win over your own suffering, which is kind of reflective of the episode.
Okay, so those Simpsons writers are smarter than they let on from time to time. Sneaky bastards.
Ahoy, hoy.
Either way, it was a great gag with the whole bit. Homer sweating off his pre-recorded on his hand lines that he was planning on saying. And
Buddhist
it once
mumbo
again
jumbo.
all just works out well. And while they're having this conversation, Mr. Burns and Smithers are in typical fashion watching over their employees from their office in the on the monitors. And I guess for Mr. Burns' perspective, it looks like these two are quite chummy.
Look at those two inseparable chums, Smithers. That's exactly the teamwork we'd like to showcase at this year's energy convention.
Are you sure?
Well, no one else seems to share the same spirit of camaraderie.
And they look over the other monitors, and instead of a power plant, it looks more like a professional wrestling match because there's people hitting each other with chairs. There's people hitting each other with chairs. There's people strangling each other. And we even see our friend Stuart the Duck pecking somebody in the eye, which, to be fair, that's illegal, Stuart. You know you're not allowed to gouge the eye.
Well, when you're a duck in a man's world, you do what you can.
So it's been decided, and Smithers tells Mindy and Homer the news. They're going to be traveling together to the Windy Apple, capital city itself, for the National Energy Convention.
I love that it's actually Mindy that goes like, oh, the Windy Apple!
Homer's really upset by this news, of course, and he actually kind of curses out Colonel Klink. Why would you portray me like this? And Klink shows up, thinking like, oh, what do you need? What do you need? Do you have a question for me?
Did you know Kinch had a radio in the coffee pot?
He did?
And I love that his guardian angel in his mind actually is Colonel Klink in this scene. Like, he's so upset about that, and like, what? He did?
Well, and I just love that, like, Klink is still essentially a bumbling buffoon because he's, like, finding out of all these little bits that they got over on him when, you know, what would that be, like, 40 years ago at this point, and he's still just so heated about it. But that does actually, on that groan, which is even more aggressive than Marge is, it ends the second act and fades to commercial, and we're going to go ahead and take a clue from The Simpsons and hear from our Podden family.
Do you ever wonder what would happen if you had a robot select 3 random elements and then gave those elements to pretend entrepreneurs, and then those pretend entrepreneurs use those things to inspire amazing pitches? Hi, I'm Derek, host of The Wild Pitch, and I'll tell you what would happen. You get an absurdist Shark Tank-style show called The Wild Pitch. New episodes every Wednesday on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podbean, wherever podcasts are found.
Hello everyone, it's MrMostDaysOff from the Best Darn Diddly Review Show, here to talk to you about PopThreads.com. PopThreads.com has all of the pop culture t-shirts you're looking for. Movies, TV shows, politics, sports, WWE, and of course, The Simpsons. And right now, you can help out our show and save 15% on your order just by using the discount code Simpsons at checkout. So head over to popthreads.com right now, buy yourself a badass new t-shirt, and help our show out in the process. Thank you so much for listening to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show, and thank you for supporting our sponsor, popthreads.com. Back from the break, we open up our third act in the Capital City Plaza Hotel, which is Legionnaire disease-free since 1990.
All right.
Legionnaire's disease, if you don't know, is actually a very aggressive form of pneumonia. It's not spread person to person, I was actually surprised to find out. It actually usually will get spread, oddly enough, in the form of a mist that will find itself into a air conditioning unit. So that's actually super fucking scary, because that means you could just be breathing and taking in this, like, hyper pneumonia.
It's like Wiggum in that other episode.
Yeah, pretty much. He starts shooting at it. But pretty much if you have a strong immune system, you're going to be fine. But for the elderly, the people who smoke a lot, or other people who have weakened immune systems, it can actually be a very deadly disease.
I was going to say, I thought it was common in the elderly usually.
I wouldn't say common, but it can
More
occur.
common.
Yes, more common is correct. Homer is shown to his room by the bellhop.
TV's there, bathroom's there, and there's your king-size bed for... Hubba, hubba.
Stop that! I love my wife and family. All I'm gonna use this bed for is sleeping, eating, and maybe building a little fort.
Got his priorities in order.
To be fair, I absolutely love building like couch and pillow forts with my nephew and stuff. It's so much fun. I used to love that when I was a kid. I officially have not grown out of it. I at some point want to do the whole community. I know we don't like go to community college, but we have to build a giant fucking mattress fort somewhere. That'd be amazing.
To be fair, no community college has rooms where you can
do that. Yeah, that's true.
Pillows out.
It's very fictionalized. Homer is off to search his room alone, and he's very excited about the amenities that are available, like the free mouthwash, free shampoo, and free shower curtain.
Free shower curtain!
And right after Homer says it, we hear Mindy actually say it from the next room over, and they discover that there's a door that connects their rooms.
Well, that would make sense. The power plant's not going to send them there to give them like an extravagant suite on each end of the hotel.
Well, I would imagine that I was thinking it was like adjoining rooms. I didn't think it was like a suite, but that makes sense too.
I don't think it's a suite. I meant like they weren't going to give them their own like super bedroom on each end of the hotel.
I don't think it would be any more expensive to have two rooms separated than it would have two rooms together.
I'm shocked that they didn't just give it one single room for the two of them, but I honestly think that they couldn't get over the idea of that if that's how it was from the get-go, they would have had to tell them that they're sharing a room, and that would be against company policy, or, you know, I figure it was murky water to give them just one room, so they had to give them two.
You know, it's actually, on that note, there's something I'll point out from the commentary, too, that for specifically the Mindy character, they wanted to make sure and be very, very careful that she just came off as being herself, that she just happened to be like Homer in very many ways. Not only was she like Homer, but she was like Homer in that she's actually a good person. She in no way was trying to be a homewrecker or anything like that, and she wasn't even being necessarily flirtatious. She was just being herself, and they tried to keep that element to her character strong, and potentially that might have something to do with what you were saying is with the single room thing. That may have been crossing the line for her sake, but again, that would have been an awkward situation for both of them, but the power plant...
I don't think Homer would have gone. If they knew it was one room, he wouldn't have gone.
Maybe that'd be the case. We'd have to see, but it would make sense either way that they end up in the same hotel, and for the point of this plot... I think the idea that she actually agrees to come in later does play some effect. But for now, they point out that, you know, it's just this one little wall that's keeping them from sleeping in the same bed.
Yeah, walls are a necessity in today's society.
Homer, I got a really wicked idea that could get us into a lot of trouble.
Oh, Mindy, we have to fight our temptation.
No, Homer. Let's do it. Let's call room service!
Oh.
And immediately there's a buzzer that goes off in Mr. Burns' office that alerts them. Smithers actually says, "Someone's charging room service to the company, sir."
Well, we'll see about that.
He walks over to a cage full of monkeys with wings. It's very much like the Wizard of Oz, where the Wicked Witch uses them as minions. Only when he releases his minions, things don't go exactly according to plan.
Fly, my pretties, fly!
But as they exit the window, instead of flying, they all just plummet to their deaths.
Continue the research. They'll perfect it one day.
Back at the hotel, though, Mindy and Homer are actually in bed together.
They're not actually in the bed, they're on the bed.
They're on the bed, yeah. Along with turkeys and pizza and sandwiches and even... foot-long chili dog. Do the 3, 2, 1 on that. Foot-long chili dog. So Homer and Mindy actually have a Lady and the Tramp moment right here, but instead of spaghetti, it's the chili dog in between them. And the moment that they touch lips, though, Homer instantly jumps back, and he actually, I guess he had eaten just enough that his outer shirt buttons start to pop, and we see that he was actually wearing that Marge face t-shirt as an undershirt, and with his big belly kind of jiggling and popping out of its outer shirt, it really gives Marge's face some interesting dimensions.
And you kind of hear that, like, Marge groan, too, while it's happening.
You do, actually. It's continuous. It's...
Yeah.
But then when Homer flees and runs out
also known as Miles' sex noises every end.
But when Homer flees out the room, you actually see that it was just that bellhop buffing the floors. And it just so happens to make the exact same noise as Marge's groan and me during sex, apparently. Back at the Simpsons home, Marge is telling Bart that the 2 weeks is finally up. He can lose the glasses, lose the shoes, and even the scalp cream. Everything is healed up fine. And I did want to point out here, though, things have been rough for Bart, but I would actually rather, if I had to deal with all this, I'd rather go through it all in just 2 weeks than have it spaced out.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, at least
I don't know anybody that wears glasses at 2 weeks. They don't have to wear them anymore.
I don't either, actually. I didn't know that would fix a lazy eye, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm not a fancy doctor who's part of some HMO.
Some HMMO?
But I do have to say that this right here coming up is officially my favorite joke of this episode, unless I change my mind later. But really, I love this because Bart's like kicking off all of his stuff. He throws his glasses down. He actually kicks his shoes out through his bedroom window, and they go flying through the Flanders living room, smashing through the glass.
Kids, did anyone pray for giant shoes?
I did!
Oakley dokley.
I just love that that's the relationship that Ned has with God, is he just expects deliveries now and then. I mean, they were praying for it after all.
I mean, it works, technically, didn't it?
But what a dick God is! Why in the fuck did he have to smash the Flanders' glass windows? That's going to cost more than the shoes that they prayed for did.
Because Flanders didn't specify in his prayer... Rod did not specify in his prayer not to break something.
Okay, well, if I'm wrong and there is a God and he ever did decide to answer prayers, let me just go ahead and put a precursor to all coming prayers that at no time do I want my windows broken in order for me to receive these gifts. Can we just get that on the record between me and the supposed big guy up top?
You said coming prayers, so if you're not coming while you pray, I think your window's going to get broken.
Is that what I'm doing wrong? Got it. Well, Bart goes to school, and he's very happy to announce that he is back. And if they're to beat Bart up, then they'd be beating one of his own. The bullies are actually having a meeting to discuss how they should beat Bart. They've been doing a lot of upper body work recently, and they really feel like they should focus on the kidneys.
Aww.
After Bart gives this little spiel about how they just be beating up one of their own, they decide that's fine, and they beat him up anyway.
He's been taking a little too many beatings in this one.
He's been hitting hard on this one, man. It's been a rough episode.
But he's not getting like bruised. Like he's almost like his father a little bit.
Runs in the family. Interesting. Unbreakable Bart has more legs than Beastmaster Bart does. I'll tell you that much.
Yawn.
So back in Capital City, we're actually at the National Energy Convention, and I love this. The very first thing we see is the lights for the sign in the Energy Convention all go out, so they weren't actually doing so hot, I guess.
And that's supposed to be their forte.
Yeah. They cut through the convention floor, and there's booths for all sorts of energy. There's fossil fuels, there's nuclear energy, there's wind energy, and there's even solar energy, which is, the booth is ran by none other than Hans Moleman. I really love this because there's a sign, first of all, it's solar energy. It's cheap, it's clean, it's the hope for tomorrow. And then a man in a suit and glasses walks up to Moleman and says, so does this stuff really work?
It certainly does.
Oh, well, lots of luck! And he hits him in the back of the neck with a karate chop that causes Moleman to go unconscious. Immediately, you see a bunch of other guys in suits they essentially come in, they put a sheet up so you can't see what's going on, and whenever they reveal the set again, it's actually a booth for fossil fuels. Use us and nobody gets hurt.
I want to see the life story of Hans Mole Man. he gets in fights in like every episode, or has an explosion happen. Like I feel like it's a really interesting story, or he's just a complete dick the other times we don't see him.
Wouldn't it be the mini life stories of Hans Mole Man? Because we see him die a number of times.
Or do we? We never actually see him die. We see him supposedly die.
I think we actually see him like in a coffin a couple of times.
He could be playing possum.
All right, fair enough.
Possum Mole Man. Oh.
For now, though, Homer and Mindy are sitting at the Springfield Nuclear Power Plant booth. And behind them, they actually have a sign up that says proudly, as seen on 60 Minutes. And everybody who's walking by is yelling at him.
Thanks for poisoning the planet, bastard.
Get bent.
No more Chernobyl.
Go to hell. Homer and Mindy are having to fight off all of these people who are angry at their form of energy, basically.
But they're really good at it. You can tell they're kind of almost reading for a script, like, don't acknowledge anything, just tell them to go fuck themselves.
Yeah, they are prepared to handle the hecklers, for certain. And Homer starts to talk to him, and he actually says, I was a little worried about coming to this convention with you, but I think as long as we're not alone together.
And now, the moment you've been waiting for. This year's King and Queen of Energy are Homer Simpson and Mindy Simmons.
I love so much that there's a king and queen of the energy convention, as if it's a freaking prom.
It's because they're the best at getting people to step the hell away from them.
And of course, it's just a great plot device for this episode, because what basically happens is Homer and Mindy are forced, literally, because Homer asks, is there a way to get out of this?
No.
So they're literally forced to go on a romantic dinner together. It's the nicest place in town. It was a Chinese food place.
Madam Chow's.
And I love that when we arrive on that scene, Mindy's saying to Homer, it was so nice of them to make us cheeseburgers.
Yeah, I really love that. Like, everyone's super fancy, dressed up. It's a really fancy restaurant. And they ordered Chinese cheeseburgers, basically.
But hey, the meal seemed to go off fine. We're actually all the way to the point where they're getting their fortune cookies. But when Homer opens up the cookie, even that, now TV and food have turned on him, because his fortune says, you will find happiness with a new love.
Uh-oh.
Homer's upset, but I love this. We cut to the kitchen, and you can actually see the waiter is announcing, oops, it looks like we're out of the happiness with a new love cookies. And someone instructs him, just open up the stick with your wife barrel. Those things really do know what's going on.
If you add in bed at the end of them.
In this case, it literally works.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, the dinner went well, and Homer and Mindy head back to the hotel room. Homer's very upset. Well, I guess you'll want to come in.
Okay.
Homer's like mocking her. It's actually pretty funny. They sit down on the bed.
This was a really nice night, Homer.
Yeah.
What's wrong?
Oh, like you don't know. We're gonna have sex.
Oh, well, we don't have to.
Yes, we do. The cookie told me so.
Well, desserts aren't always right.
But they're so sweet. Mindy's trying to reassure Homer, and they're trying to make it very clear that she was not being the aggressor, and that she wasn't really... She was essentially going through the same feelings that Homer did. She's a good person who finds herself attracted to a married man.
Because she's heard about his libido. Homer, you don't have to do anything you don't want to.
Well, maybe I want to. But then I think about Marge and the kids. Well, not the boy. He drives me nuts. Sometimes I just like to... And that's when Mindy actually cuts Homer off, and it gets a little bit heartfelt right here.
Look in your heart. I think you'll see what you want.
Their heads move slowly closer to each other, and it looks like they're actually about to kiss. And I guess technically they do. They make contact for just a moment. They do actually kiss, I should clarify, but it's very, very, very brief. It's like a moment, and you can see instantly that makes up Homer's mind.
I always feel like, even the first time I saw the episode, you always feel like you're glad he did it, but at the same time I feel bad that he did it.
It's a very odd thing. It really is. Just because Homer is truly a good guy for the most part. He's sometimes selfish. He's often a jerk, and he can definitely be a buffoon, but his heart always seems to be in the right place. And this is definitely the closest we see him to a lapse.
I honestly, though, the way that I always take that moment when they do kiss is that it's almost friendly the way they do it. It's almost like they're saying, okay, this is it.
As if almost like a sweet, bitter goodbye type of thing.
Yeah. Like I always took it as like they both know where his heart is, so it's just kind of like you said, it's like a goodbye, and that's how I've always taken it. But it still feels just like a little bit wrong, but like you know where he's going with it.
And as the scene kind of devolves into it, seems like their little moment is over. We actually hear Barry White's "Can't Get Enough of Your Love" play, which more Barry White appearances on The Simpsons, always great. And what we actually end up seeing is we're back in the hotel room, and we know something's up, but the big reveal is coming up. Homer says, "Oh, baby.
This was a wonderful idea, honey."
And Homer and Marge actually kiss. And that's when Marge does something else that makes Homer very happy.
Hey, there's a turkey behind the bed.
Marge.
Click.
Oh, Margie, you came and you found me a turkey on my vacation away from worky.
And just to throw this out there, I still sing this all the time. I've sang this for years. Whenever I'm in a good mood, I will sing these two lines over and over again and just put people's name in the song that I'm around.
It's a really great, sweet ending. I think I've said this on like every Marge and Homer episode, but this is a really good Marge and Homer episode. I think a lot of that does actually come from the fact that they're actually separated not actually separated, but they're not on screen together for large chunks of it versus some of the other episodes where they are more during the heavy marriage episodes. But this one feels a little bit different than the other ones do.
Yeah, it does. And I honestly think it's because, like, you're actually attracted to Michelle Pfeiffer's character.
You know, she does, again, for being a cartoon, not in a weird way, but I mean, Michelle Pfeiffer is an incredibly sexy woman, especially back in 93 for what that's worth. And again, her voice talents here are phenomenal because even when you can't see her, she still does a phenomenal job of making Mindy an insanely attractive female character.
They do a good job of making you feel the chemistry between her and Homer.
Big time.
And so that's what makes you like the ending so much more, is because Homer actually does the right thing. Somehow Marge has the exact same dress as Mindy that she's wearing in that scene.
At least she got over that cold in time. That would have been super awkward. But of course, that wasn't the actual end of the episode. There is one more great little bit, because as the lights go down and Homer and Marge get frisky like we know they like to, we see both of their eyes in the darkness, and then we suddenly see a third set of eyes.
Woof, woof. Hubba, hubba.
And Homer punches him in the eye to end the episode. And that will bring us to the end of The Last Temptation of Homer. Richie, was there anything else that you or that book of yours wanted to share before we get out of here?
We actually touched on everything that was in my book, which makes me happy when we bring up things like that already on our own. We're so smart today, Miles.
SMRT.
But I will say this was a very good episode. It's one, again, that I've seen numerous times. And I don't know if I was looking forward to the episode or not. I thought it would be middle of the road for me. And I'd say that I'd put it a little bit above middle of the road. It's still, like, all of season 5 has been fantastic so far. It's not as good as last week's episode. Boy Scouts in the Hood is going to be hard.
That's going to be hard to beat, brother.
But this was a little bit better than I remembered it being, so I was very happy about that.
I agree. I had actually very fond memories of this episode, and this is one where, despite me having high hopes and high memories, it exceeded, or met in most places, exceeded in others. Fantastic episode. Really, really good story. A little bit more heart than we've gotten in some of the previous episodes, to be honest.
And maybe a little bit more erection, too.
The humor may have taken a slight step back, but that sometimes is okay with The Simpsons, because they do bring so much to the table that even when the laughs aren't coming as often, this one brings enough emotional emotional elements to the table. It feels like a very complete story. And even though it's a little bit shorter than some of the episodes, same thing. They did a really good job arcing this one out. I do have a couple of other fun facts to talk about real quick, kind of coincidences in some way that are just a little bit of fun. First of all, this is actually not the first Simpson man to fall in love with a woman with the last name Simmons. Because if you recall back when Abe Simpson fell in love with Bea, her actual name was Beatrice Simmons. So just a coincidence there that both men had a relationship or a fling or an attraction, I'll say, to a woman with the name Simmons. Also, another thing for Michelle Pfeiffer specifically, this was kind of fun because this was the second role in 1993 in which Michelle Pfeiffer was essentially playing the other woman. Because in Martin Scorsese's The Age of Innocence, she played Countess Olenska, who was tempting Daniel Day-Lewis's character away from his wife.
How dare you?
Just a fun little crossover that I don't think they actually had any idea that had happened yet when they had her on. I think this episode was written long before that had happened, is what I'm trying to say. So just a fun coincidence. But again, another great episode and brought a little bit more heart back to The Simpsons. And I think that will do it for this week's Best Darn Diddly. So Richie, go ahead and let them know where they can find you online.
As always, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at theWiz_kid23. Also, while you're on Twitter, go ahead and give our show a follow as well. That's at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY.
And that, of course, works on Instagram as well. And you can find me pretty much everywhere at MrMostDaysOff. Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, all of that good stuff. Other than that, we just want to thank you again so much for tuning in and listening to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. We appreciate each and every one of you listening to us ramble on about The Simpsons each week. We're going to be back again with Ripken from the Wrestling Nerds, WNW, and the Derailers. Take your pick. That man's everywhere. We're going to be discussing the episode Springfield, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Legalized Gambling.
And make sure you make your friend tune in to listen as well. You know, that one guy, Joey Jojo Jr. Shabadoo.
Until next time, be cromulent to each other.
This is the Secret Transmission Podcast. We are a podcast about the strange and unusual, the secret and the conspiracies, the friends and the supernatural. We're a podcast that talks about weird things like number stations, the Bermuda Triangle, the Salem witch trials, time travel, the moon landing, the Zika virus, serial killers, cults, the deep web, UFOs, superstitions. We cover it all. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and Google Play. You can also follow us on Twitter, at Secret Transpod, at SecretTranspod. Come listen to us try to explain the unexplainable.
Ready to say goodbye.